Thank you.
All right, it's really good to be here today. My name is Beth Cofer, as Eugene has already mentioned, and I am a former high school English teacher as well as a former homeschooling mom of 12 years. So we're going to talk today about balancing all of the different language arts components on the secondary level. As you get into secondary, some of you may be brand new to secondary level, others may be seasoned, and maybe you're dealing with multiple kids on the secondary level, but you know there's just a lot to include. So we're going to talk about all of the different components of secondary language arts and how to go about fitting them all into your homeschool day. So when we talk about secondary English or secondary language arts, we've got basically 4 components. You've got writing, grammar, literature, and vocabulary. Now with BJU Press curriculum, we've got writing and grammar combined within one book, and then we have literature separate for each grade level, or a separate book for literature. And then we do also, BJU Press does also offer separate vocabulary. Vocabulary is also included in the literature books with lists and words within the stories and things like that. But all of those are an important components of any language arts curriculum. They're all important. So we're talking about balancing all of them. We're not talking about getting rid of any of them. And while I'm going to talk about the fact that it's okay to skip some things now and then, we don't want to skip any one of these components. So I'm going to just take them individually, each of these subject areas, and give you maybe some strategies for modifying, for just being able to get all of those things in, because they are all important. So let's talk first about the writing component. Now, the writing process, if you've been with BJU Press or perhaps other curriculums and you're coming in and you may have learned a similar process, we always talk about the writing process: planning, drafting, revising, which includes proofreading, and then publishing. On the secondary level, we usually make it into a 4-step process, with proofreading being part of revision, part of the revising process. Okay, so I bring up the writing process because when we talk about just ways to modify assignments, to give yourself some more time to save your sanity, the sanity of your students, just to make some modifications, we can use that process to guide us in making some of those modifications. So let's talk about some ways to modify writing assignments just to get a little bit more time into your day. One thing you could do, and this is going back to that process, is just park on those first and or second steps of planning and drafting. And this would mean that you would have your student write the paper, do the assignment, but then do all the critiques and the revision orally, and then they're done. So you give them the assignment. Let's say you're doing a literary analysis essay, or maybe it's in the grammar book and they're writing instructions or something like that. They do the planning process, the brainstorming, the preparation, they write the paper, and then together you can talk about what should be revised, what things could make this better, and then you send them on their merry way. It can be less frustrating for them because they don't have to go back and rewrite and have that final copy. Now, I'm not saying to do that on every assignment. These are all just examples of things that you can do for some assignments here and there. Again, just to ease up on some frustration and give yourself some extra time. You could also, on some assignments, go ahead and just skip to that 3rd step of revision. Well, how do you do that if you haven't had them write something? Well, you can do some peer review, maybe get together with other homeschooling friends, with families, find something that was previously written, or even find something online. Again, maybe you're doing the literary analysis essay, find something online that was written and have your student do a process to that work instead of doing his own work. You're still talking through the steps of the writing process. You're still learning about writing by identifying good writing, revising, critiquing, and you're also accomplishing the goal of getting a little bit more time and frustrating your student less, because it's, oh, yay, I only have to do this step, or I only have to spend this amount of time for that writing project. Also, you can modify assignments so that your student can do something that he or she is interested in. Maybe they are supposed to write a biographical sketch of a historical character. Well, if your son wants to write about a sports star instead, that might be a way to motivate him and make it something more interesting for him. So that's something that you can do. And it's okay. You don't have to do exactly what's in that assignment. You can make some modifications. Don't be afraid to skip some assignments. Not all assignments, and not big ones. You don't want to skip or in 11th grade, but you can skip some assignments here and there. Use your best judgment. You're the mom, you know what's best. and then just mix it up and make it fun, or at least try. You do need to accept that not all students are going to enjoy writing. Not all parents enjoy writing. My boys would probably, I can't even think of a writing assignment they wouldn't have complained about. I still made them do them, but just accept that maybe it's not going to be the subject that they love the most, if that's the camp that they're in, and just do your best to make it fun and then move on. Okay, so let's move on to grammar and talk about some strategies again for modifying some grammar. Now, grammar can be frustrating. Some people are frustrated because we do the same thing, it seems like, in grammar from year to year. Why do we do nouns in 2nd grade, but then we're still doing nouns in 12th grade? Well, we repeat those basic grammar concepts every year just to cement that understanding and to help to just further knowledge of basic sentence structure and things like that. And obviously, there's a progression through the years. We're getting to more advanced grammar concepts with the older grades, but we are still reviewing. So having said that, starting early is great. And if you've been with our curriculum and had a really strong grammar foundation, that's wonderful. But if you've not done that, your child has not had that strong foundation, don't feel like you're behind. And that's another reason that we review starting with the very basics every single year. A student who didn't get that strong grammar foundation, either didn't understand or wasn't exposed, can come into our curriculum in 8th grade and 10th grade and get some of those basics down. So don't stress, oh, I'm behind, everybody else already knows this. You have an opportunity to jump right in and catch up and get them where they need to be. So a few strategies for teaching grammar, and these again would be for saving time, saving frustration for your student, would be to mix up exercises. Tell them, just do the odds on this one, just do the evens here. It's okay. If you want to come back and use the others later for review, before a test, or even for diagramming or something like that, just for further understanding, you can do that. But it's okay to just pick a few from an exercise. Sometimes there are multiple exercises within one section. Let's say we've got prepositional phrases and there are 4 exercises of 10 sentences each. Don't make them do all of them. Pick 1 or 2. And as long as they're understanding, it's okay to move on. Also use a pretest when they're available, as they are in some of the grade levels, or you can just use an exercise as a pretest. If your student, again, they're strong on grammar, they know their prepositional phrases, have them do one exercise, they get it right, just move on to the next concept. It can be frustrating for students to have to just keep doing sentence after sentence when they already get it. So use that. Feel free to skip those if they're understanding. Then, of course, we've got strugglers, those who are not understanding. Take those in small doses. If your student is just really having trouble identifying a dependent clause versus an independent clause, just take it in small doses. Do 1 exercise a day. Sit down with them and do it if at all possible. Again, divide the odds or the evens. If they really need extra help with it, we don't want to necessarily skip it, but have them do the odds 1 hour. Take a break, come back and do the evens, that type of thing. Just work toward dividing it so that you don't frustrate them. An excellent resource that if you're not familiar with, you need to be, is afterschoolhelp.com, and that is the BJU Press website. It has specific videos and other exercises for all of these grammar concepts. They're aligned with the curriculum. You can go back to an earlier grade if your student's not quite there on the grade that he or she is in. That's perfectly fine. Find the video that matches the subject area that you need to be working on. And then I would just say relax when it comes to grammar and focus on the basics. Your student can be completely successful if he never really understands how to identify a subject be adverbial sentence. Okay, he can still have a successful life if he doesn't fully understand every advanced grammatical concept that is in our book. So focus on the basics. Make sure they understand basic parts of speech, basic sentence structure, the difference between a complete sentence and a fragment, or the serious errors and that type of thing. Those are the basics, so focus on those if your student's not there. Okay, we're going to move on to literature, and I'm going to start with this verse. 1 Peter 5:8 tells us that Satan is after our children. He's after our families. He's after us, and we do need to be vigilant, and I can't think of a better way to teach discernment than through the study of literature. The study of literature is a powerful tool for learning and for using discernment. And within a biblically based curriculum, you can have selections that do include maybe some objectionable elements, items for discussion, but within a biblically based curriculum that allows a student to question and deepen his own faith in a safe environment. Now, I'm not saying you need to go out there and question your faith. Please understand. I'm saying we want to ask questions. We want our students to ask questions about their faith in order to deepen their faith. If they're never confronted with differing viewpoints, if they're never confronted with things that are objectionable, they don't develop that ability to combat error. And so it's very important. Literature is a wonderful way to teach truth and error. I always come back to this. If we teach children to discern truth and error in literature and stories, we're teaching them to discern truth and error in their entertainment, their news, the marketing messages that are out there. Our students, all of us, are bombarded with false messages day in, day out. And using literature to teach discernment is a great way to get them thinking. When they watch that movie, they read that book, they hear that news report, they hear that commercial, all sorts of things that they can apply the same process of, is what I'm hearing true? Is this valid? And so it's a wonderful thing to do. All right, now with literature though, a lot of times the frustration of teaching literature is because the selections are long, it takes a long time. Maybe you have a struggling reader, or somebody who just doesn't really enjoy reading, who doesn't enjoy literary interpretation. So let's talk about some strategies to help get through that as well. When it comes to reading the selections in literature books, reading together, even as a family, breaking up those longer stories. Let's say you have a 10-page story and that's hard for your student to get through. Pick 2 or 3 pages on a family reading night, and then they only have a few more left to do the next day. Look for opportunities to get a little bit out of the way, and doing it together as a family can be profitable. Reading out loud, and you too. You could take turns reading to your student. As long as he or she's paying attention, then that's okay. Even older kids enjoy being read to. So read out loud, read together. Divide those longer sections into smaller portions. And I'm talking here mostly about struggling readers. Many secondary students will have no trouble tackling a 12-page story in a literature book. That will be fine. But I know that there are some for whom that would be a struggle. And so that's what we're really talking about mostly here. Divide those longer sections into smaller portions throughout the day. Spread them out even over more than one day. It's okay. Their understanding is more important than just checking off boxes and making sure it all gets done. Discussion questions. I'm going to park on this one just for a minute. Our books, our literature books, have thinking zone questions. They have discussion questions at the end of every literary selection, and they are designed for critical thinking. Again, going back to discernment and understanding truth and error, and just being really able to comb through the message of that material that they just read and learn some lessons from it and make application. Those questions are designed for that exact type of thing. If you just tell your student, go answer questions 1 through 10 on a piece of paper, that can really lead to frustration and even a waste of time, because so many of them are designed for discussion. They're designed to be thought through, and it's much easier to talk through something than to write all of your thoughts down on paper. So I would just suggest to make sure that you're able to do at least some of those discussion questions orally with your student. Even you don't have a lot of time, I get that. You've got 1,000 things going on and multiple children doing subjects, so you can't necessarily sit down and do a long discussion about each literary selection. One thing you could do is have your student videotape himself. Just take a phone and do a video. Okay, I'm going to answer number 3 on the screw tape letters, Mom. And then you can go back and listen to that later, even listen to it together, or just on your own when you have time. It's a way he's thinking through that, and it's still saving some time and some frustration. So I would really suggest that with the discussion questions. Now, you may need to skip assignments. Again, we're talking about saving time here. It's okay. It's okay to skip here too. Just use your best judgment. You know your child best. You know what he or she's most capable of, what they need the most, perhaps. And so just use your best judgment when it comes to that. Another thing with literature is that you can look at quizzes and tests yourself to help them prepare, especially if you do need to skip something. Just say, okay, we're gonna not do these 5 questions on the test because we weren't able to read this story. Help them prepare. I'm not talking about teaching the test. We're not spoon feeding them information, but our material is academically rigorous and we want it to be that. And so understanding what's in the test yourself can really assist, it can help you assist your student in focusing on what they need to be taking away from the stories that they read. Okay, last thing, vocabulary. Vocabulary is included in the literature books. There are lists that are available on the toolkit CDs, but then we also do have the separate vocabulary books as well. So vocabulary is an important component of any language arts curriculum, however you choose to incorporate that. But remember that vocabulary should be about context, it should be about comprehension, and not just rote memory. Okay, so there are a list of words, but it's not just about spitting out information and exact definitions. We want them to understand these words in context and be able to comprehend. However, vocabulary can be a real esteem builder for the student who is maybe more fact-oriented, doesn't really enjoy literary interpretation, that kind of thing frustrates them, doesn't like grammar. Vocabulary is something a little bit more tangible, a little bit more objective for some students. So give them that opportunity. Don't say, I won't give you an A unless you write a 10-page story using all of your vocabulary words. That's, creative and imaginative. So not everybody wants to do that. So just look for ways to mix all of these things up, make them fun, and enjoy teaching English to your secondary students. That is my presentation, so I will back out, and I will be back with you in a little bit in the Q&A. Feel free to ask questions.